Welcome to New Wave Teaching Lessons. If you're new here, don't forget to click subscribe. We upload videos every single week. In this series, we'll talk about Algebra 1, specifically Semester 1. Let's get started. Hi guys, welcome back. This is the second video of our Algebra 1 series. If you have not watched the first, I will go ahead and link that above. If you have, let's get started. Before we do, however, we do have a free downloadable worksheet if you would like to follow along. It is in the description box below. You can download that at any time. There are U-tries, there's an answer key. It's a really great worksheet to help you through this video. So let's get started. Okay, so for our toolbox, we have a couple definitions. We always like to start out with some vocab. So in this, we will be looking at the word justify, and we'll kind of get into that in a little. Justify means to lay out the math thought process step by step, and you will see how that goes. The next vocab word is distributive property. Distributive property is when you're multiplying a number to a group of numbers. The next one is like terms, terms that have the same variable and power. Again, remember a variable is a letter X, Y, Z kind of thing. And the next one is inverse operations, and that is operations that undo each other. So looking at that, addition goes with subtraction, and also vice versa. Subtraction goes with addition. And this was in my last video. It's very important to understand this. This will be the building blocks to everything you're going to do in Algebra 1. So knowing your operations and how to use them with their inverses. In addition to, division is the opposite to multiplication, and multiplication is the opposite to division. So once you get these down and know how to use them, when we go into the second standard of solving equations, it's going to be much easier. So let's look at an example. So if you have that downloadable worksheet, go ahead and get that in front of you right now. So our goal is to use inverse operations to justify the next step. Okay, so let's look at a possible example. So let's say we have the given -3 parentheses 2x plus 5 equals 3. Okay, so the first thing that you're going to do, and we talked about this in the toolbox, is distributive property. So I'm going to take -3 and distribute that, or put it into the 2x and the 5 that are inside the parentheses. And that's going to give me -6x minus 15 equals 3. So when I multiply that through, that's what I get. So to justify what I did, if you guys look over to the right, I used the distributive property. I justified my step. That's all that there is to justifying steps. You say what you did, and that's it. So let's go from here. So if I have -6x minus 15 equals 3, what would I do? Well, I know that I have to get the 15 to the other side. And if it's a -15, going back to my previous knowledge about inverse operations, I know that the inverse or opposite of negative is a positive. So I know I'm going to have to, and there's your tip right there, inverse equals opposite. I know I'm going to have to add 15 to both sides. And that'll give me -6x equals 18. So then my justification of that would be take the inverse operation of -15 and perform to both sides. I'm justifying adding 15 to both sides. That's what I'm saying in my justification. Okay, so the next one is -6x equals 18. So again, when solving equations, my goal is to get the x alone. We learned this in the last video. So if you have not watched that, make sure you go back. So I need to get x alone. So to do that, I need to get rid of that -6. And be careful, many students will add 6 to both sides just because they see a -6. No, you have to see what's happening between the -6 and the x. And that operation that's happening is multiplication. So what is the inverse of multiplication? And we know that the inverse of multiplication is division. So I'm going to go ahead and divide by whatever number I see in front of that x. So I'm not just going to divide by a 6. I need to get rid of that entire -6. So I'm going to go ahead and divide by -6 to both sides. And that's going to give me the x alone, and it's going to give me -3 for the other side. So when I'm justifying what I just did, I took the inverse operation of multiplication, which was division, to isolate the variable x. So take the inverse operation of multiplication to isolate the variable x. Yeah. And you guys have to understand too, yours might not look exactly like mine, the justification, but it will look similar as far as how you're wording things. But you can see here, we have our full equation, we solved it, and each time that we're doing a step, we're justifying what we're doing in words. Okay, so the next question, let's say I'm given a negative this time, -2, and then 6 plus 3c equals 36. So the next thing I want to do is, again, I want to distribute. So I'm going to distribute the negative. Make sure you distribute to both. When I say both, I mean it must go to both the 6 and the 3c that are inside the parentheses. Do not forget about that 3c. So when I distribute, -2 times 6 equals -12, -2 times 3c equals -6c, and so forth. So I'm justifying this. I just use the distributive property. So there's my justification. Okay, so in this next step, again, a tip, remember that inverse equals opposite. So I have -12 minus 6c equals 36. So I need to get rid of the -12. I'm not going to mess with the 6c or the -6c yet. I need to get rid of the number 12 first. So if I have a -12, I need to remember, okay, what's the opposite of -12? Positive 12. So I need to go ahead and add 12 to both sides. And then that's going to give me -6c coming down. Do not forget to bring that negative with it, equals 48. And what I did there, I'm justifying my steps. Take the inverse operation of -12, which was that positive 12 in purple, and perform to both sides. I just justified my step. Now we have -6c equals 48. I know that the inverse of multiplication is division, so they're my division signs. And remember, I need to get rid of that entire -6. So I'm going to divide both sides by -6. And I'm left with c equals -8. And my justification for that step is take the inverse operation multiplication to isolate the variable x. Okay, so our next question is going to look a little bit different. We have 18 equals p minus 2 minus 6p. So in this situation, I don't see any parentheses like the last two questions for distributive property, but I do see like terms. And remember from the toolbox on our first slide, like terms are basically, they have the same variable and the same power. So I have a 1p, because there's no number in front of that p, and I have a -6p. So if I were to combine like terms together, I have those two, and it ends up being -5p, because 1 minus 5, or 1 plus negative, I'm sorry, 1 minus 6 is -5. So -5p, and then that -2 will come down. So my justification for that step is I combined like terms. That's it. So I justified what I did in purple, and that's all I need to do. So from here, the rest is the same. So I do need to isolate the p and leave that for the last step. So I'm going to go ahead and get rid of that -2, and remembering that inverse equals opposite. That's going to be our tip for this video. So if I have -2, the opposite of that is going to be +2. So I need to go ahead and add 2 to both sides, which will give me 20 equals -5p. So I take the inverse operation of, sorry, that's supposed to be a -2, and perform to both sides. Now I have 20 equals -5p. So I'm going to go ahead and divide -5 to both sides. Remember, not just +5, -5. And p equals -4. So I took the inverse operation of multiplication to isolate the variable x. So remember with this too, notice how my last part, it's p equals -4. Some of you guys might have gotten -4 equals p because the p was on the right side to begin with. That's okay. I just recommend writing the variable on the left side all the time because it's how different math sites are going to take it. If you're, on Math Excel, they want the P or the variable to be on the left. So just get used to writing the variable on the left-hand side. And our last question. So let's say we are given something similar, but now our variables are on the left side. So I need to remember that if I have any like terms, I need to do that first. So I do have a negative 4x and I have a 9x. Those are like terms because they both have an x to the same power. That's going to give me 5x plus 9 equals 24. And then my justification, I combine like terms. From there, I need to also remember for our tip for this video that inverse equals opposite. So I need to go ahead and get rid of that positive 9 because the 5x is going to stay to the last step. So if I have a positive 9, the inverse of that will be negative 9. That'll give me 5x equals 15. And my justification is take the inverse of positive 9 and perform to both sides, which I did. Now the same thing goes. I have 5x equals 15. I'm going to go ahead and divide both sides by whatever number is in front of the x. In this situation, it's a positive 5. So I'm going to go ahead and divide both sides by 5 to get x equals 3. And my justification is take the inverse operation, multiplication, to isolate the variable x. Okay, so I hope this video was helpful, and I hope you guys were able to follow along in your worksheet. There are 4 additional U-tries and an answer key. If you guys have any questions or comments, feel free to post those below, and you guys can see the next video in line. Have a great day.
Thank you guys for watching, and don't forget to subscribe and like our channel. Make sure you give it a thumbs up and hit the notification bell to never miss a video. Have a good one.